Welcome to Healers with Humor.
Where healing meets heart and a whole lot of vulnerability.
We're your hosts, Candice and Shelly, two healers navigating life, love, and all the messy moments in between.
Because we believe that healing isn't just about crystals and meditation. It's about embracing the chaos, learning from the challenges, and finding joy in the journey.
Each week, we'll share real stories, insightful conversations, and maybe even a few awkward truths just to help you navigate your own healing path.
And guess what? This season, we're bringing in special guests to share their wisdom and inspire even more connection.
So grab your favorite cup of coffee or tea, or just settle right in and get ready for laughs, lessons, and a whole lot of light. This is Healers with Humor. Welcome back, Bright Lights, to Healers with Humor, Season 2, Episode 4. There are no wrong turns. How to trust the map of your journey. I'm Candice.
And I'm Shelly.
Hey, everyone. We're excited to be back and talking about our journeys and how there are no wrong turns and we just need to trust that map. And one of the things that we always talk about is the candle for the episode. The candle that I pulled today is the joy candle. And it says, I am joyful in this moment. I am joyful in knowing that there are no wrong turns and that we get to just trust the map of the journey. And Shelly has pulled the card for the episode. Share with us your wisdom in the card.
Yeah, so first what I'll say about the joy candle is I just realized how much sense that makes. And I say that, right? Because how many times do we know that what we're supposed to be following is what brings us joy and to follow the joy, right? Bring in more joy.
Yep.
And so, right, that definitely makes a good map.
Yeah.
So I love that. All right. So the card of the episode is from the Enchanted Map Oracle cards. It's a number 48 with the words wishing well. And it's a woman out in a field with a stone well, and all this light is coming out of the top of the well. And the intuitive message that I heard regarding this card is your map will lead you to the light within.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
And it will, right? Connects really well with joy. All right.
Yes.
That's the cool part about doing this.
Absolutely.
So I love that.
Yep. And we talked a couple weeks ago, again, one of these personal development things I'm doing. One of the things that came up was a map. And there was a map to Self-Love Island. And so I am on the journey that the map is providing me to Self-Love Island. But one of the things we like to talk about is our favorite things. And for me, this episode, what came up was a crystal called Apache Tears. And I felt like I needed just a little bit extra protection as I'm on my journey. I'm bringing in a lot of personal development. I'm working with, a lot of new clients. And I just felt like I needed an extra added protection. So I am currently obsessed with the Apache Tears because it helps absorb negative energy and protect my energy field. So I do a lot of work with that anyway, right? And we've done an episode all about that, episode 14. And this Apache Tears is allowing me to connect between my root chakra and Mother Earth. So it's allowing me to anchor my energy a little bit deeper so that it has an outlet so that I'm not holding all of that energy all of the time. So it really serves as a protection and a grounding link to your inner sources and guides. So
I love that
thing right now.
Well, I also had a favorite thing for today. It's a book I'm reading. It's called My Moody Day Book by Keela Parkinson, who actually Candice and I both know. I'll tell you why the book is something I'm really enjoying right now. Not only does it cover like sunlight and boundaries and food and things like the love language and meditation, but it really dives deeper into different emotions.
Okay.
So fear might be one, boredom, rejection. It has some unique thoughts and perspectives on some of those emotions and situations that we really all go through while we're on our healing journey. So that's my favorite thing this week.
Well, I'm excited to hear it's your favorite thing because it's on order and coming coming in the mail soon. So I'll be excited for that to arrive.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll get this episode started. All right, Candace. So while we were planning this episode, right, my first question for you is following a map. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to
What
you? Right?
does that mean?
When's the last time one of us had a map?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But, I mean, in its simplest form is kinda where it went, and following a map to me is that I have chosen, right, a destination to go to, and the map is gonna show me how to get from point A to point B. There could be multiple routes, right? I like my Waze app, and it shows me, right, I can get here in a multitude of different ways. There's the no toll route, right? There's the fastest route, and there's the route with the least amount of mileage that might take a little bit longer.
Oh.
And
Which one are
so
you taking?
I think I've taken all of them at some point. And so the other piece that came in is that we can't forget about the rest stops along the way. So the map doesn't
Mm.
always show us the rest stops. Sometimes we have to find them if it's not, a major highway. Sometimes we have to get off of the exit and find the gas station with a restroom. But yeah, don't forget to look for the rest stops along the way so you can pull over and collect yourself sometimes when you need to, right? But yeah, I really went with the simplest form. And what about you? What are some thoughts around the meaning of a map for you?
Yeah, so I started laughing whenever I started working on this episode because aside from the fact that I don't think I'm probably great at reading a map, right? We're so used to a phone being like, take a right-hand turn, take a left-hand turn. But in going back to playing with maps as a kid, right? Or you go to an amusement park, right? And you get the little map or the map of the area that you're in.
Yep.
And what I always like about it is being able to see the whole picture, which,
Ah.
haha, we do not get to do that in on a healing journey, right?
Mhm.
But you could see, for example, right? You could see the whole state, or you could see from point, like you said, point A to point B, the whole picture.
Yep.
I definitely also thought about, getting to choose the route, right? And
Mhm.
that's based on I thought about it less of, long and short or gas efficient or, no tolls. I thought about it more in what did I want to see along that route,
Mm. Mhm.
right? Like, the greatest ball of yarn or a cheese factory, right? Whatever I'm thinking about, as a kid, right? What you would see on a map.
Yep.
The other piece was fully understanding where I'm trying to go.
Mm.
And right, I think it's why I like a map,
Yeah.
right? You got that start to finish.
Uh-huh.
But much to your point, right, is that a lot of times when we have that, you're not interested in little side excursions or getting lost. And also thinking through that that's actually where some of the really neat, amazing things come in, right?
Yeah, that's where the magic is most of the time, right?
Oh.
Yeah. I know. We are planning a trip over the summer, and it's a big road trip. And so we've had to really I think the first round of thoughts were, we're just getting from point A to point B. And how do we do that? And what's the most efficient route? And then I took a step back and was like, well, what is there to see along the way? To your point. And so we've made some adjustments to where we're going to stop or how long we're going to drive a particular day so that we get to see some things along the way that we may not have really thought about in the first round of planning.
Yeah, so we circle back to what we've said many times, right? Focusing on the journey, not just the destination,
Yes, exactly.
and being in the present.
Yep. Yep. So in healing, we've talked about a little bit, but is there an actual map for our healing journey? Can you attempt to follow a map on this healing escapade that we're on?
No and no. And I wish. Certainly in the beginning, right? I was like, well, tell me what you go learn first, right? Is it about astrology? Is it about palm reading? Is it intuition?
Mhm.
And that was one of my earliest frustrations is, well, how do I know what order to do things in or what to start with, right?
Yep.
And I don't think there is. I don't think there's a right or best way or best order. Because if I think about looking at the last 6 or 7 years for myself, and again, things that we've really, said in the past, right? Being in the present, and my favorite word, surrender, along with divine timing, are really the things that come into play,
Mhm.
right? It's not there's not a order. You're not going through a workbook on your healing journey. So no.
No. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, if there if there was a map, I missed that day in healing class. Uh, but yeah, it's an individual process, right? So there can be multiple ways of getting to the same destination. So you and I have worked through, right, a lot of similar things in completely
Uh-huh.
different ways. And that's the
Uh-huh.
beauty of the healing process, right? It's very individual and there's so many modalities and there's so many ways to receive guidance and receive help, but sometimes we get a little muddled or there's too many options, right? So it's like,
Uh,
where do I start first? And I think, the episode we did on your book, right? The healing paths is a great place to start, right? You're getting some good overview information and it allows you to see some of the different paths and some of those things might resonate and it could be, step 6 that you're going to start with, right? And rather than step 1. So everybody's just, yeah, individual.
yeah. So yeah, just agreeing with you on what you're thinking are sort of good guidelines for a healing map, right? We've also most of season 1 is really exactly that, right? A good basis for where to start healing.
Yep.
And so I think, the things that we talked about, inner child healing, ego, self-love, right? I think those are universally things that most of us work through at some point.
Yes. Agree. Yep. And, from again, we've talked about a lot of these different modalities and different things,
Mhm.
but I think both of us have taken the lessons that we've learned, right, from our own healing journeys and provided, I'm not going to say a map, but maybe a loose guideline or a compilation of things that have worked for us that we now get to provide to our clients, right? So for me, working with trapped emotions and heart walls and chakras and generational patterns and faulty belief systems, right? Those are beautiful ways to work through, right, a healing process. And creating programs within my healing business that will provide someone a little bit of a map, maybe. It's not prescribed, right? Week 1, we do this, week 2, we do this. But all of those things incorporated using our intuition, right? Listening to what our clients need and want and helping them along the way in a way that we really didn't have, quite honestly. I didn't have
Right.
anybody that was walking me through all of these different steps because they had been through it. I've had to really do that myself, and I know you have too. And I think that's a beautiful part of the journey, right? We've been able to create a little bit of a, straw man for ourselves and for others.
Certainly, if I think about your empowered empath program,
Mhm.
well, you're correct, right? It's not like week 1 is this, week 2 is this. You do have enough structure to understand what most empaths are going to have for, I'll say, work to do,
Yes.
right? Because we do absorb or take on emotions, right? We do
Mhm.
a lot of the same and similar behaviors. And so, yeah, I absolutely agree with you, right? A good outline for, how to help people, whether it's opening up their heart, working on their chakras, or the empowered empath.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and you've created a new program as well to help folks.
yeah, certainly to focus on pain and chronic illness, some autoimmune, and then as well as trauma, right? Really focused on what are the kinds of things that help. And yep, you're correct, right? A framework for each of the 4 sessions, but certainly, right, each person's body is different and
Mhm.
needs you to focus on something else, right? And that's the beautiful part about intuition.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Candace, all right, what do you do when you feel lost? When you can't read the map, when you feel lost on healing, how do you find your way back?
When I've spilled my coffee on the map, I call you. Seriously, phoning a friend. No, I mean, I'm pretty good, right? Knowing what the next steps are and what we're supposed to be, what I'm gonna work on next. But when I get into a cycle of where I don't feel like things are working, or when something happens and I become overwhelmed, right? So there's a
Mhm.
situation that's come up, I almost lose the ability to connect into my own intuition when I get really, nervous or insecure about something or overwhelmed. And so, yeah, I typically phone my friends and just, sometimes it's just about doing too much. And I actually need to do what I tell my clients to do, which is take time to let things integrate. I think both of us, right, being perfectionists, we've both tried to fast track some things, and that doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely like to connect with, other healers, my friends, to get some of that, grounding when I need it. And yeah, just another perspective to help me through the day.
Yeah, I love that you hit on so many of the things that came to mind when you said that, right? Yeah. We have our vertical connection, right, and our intuition and
Mhm.
we're centered and grounded. Sometimes we really need to sit still,
Yeah.
right? And that can be challenging for us who think we're going to fast track something. And the other thing that came to mind was a reading I had in either a couple months ago, but it was like hang upside down and get a different perspective, but essentially be still and hang upside down,
Mm.
right? Which again is can be frustrating to me, right? It's not going where I'd like it to go.
Yes.
And then the other part that I always think about is, have you ever seen anybody play double dutch, right? The two
Yeah.
jump ropes, and you sort of head bob on
Mhm.
when to jump in, right?
Yep.
I think of as you were talking, that's the other thing that came to mind is thinking of when to jump in, right? And the right timing.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So, we've talked about this a little bit, but is this the time that we actually remind ourselves to focus on the journey and not the destination?
I think so. As we've discussed, right? There are rest stops, there are
Yeah.
areas of interest,
Yeah.
there are beautiful things. So, yeah, I think so.
So, what are some of the things that we've learned, along the way when you've gotten frustrated, when you've lost, the ability to kind of connect into your intuition? What are some of the what are some of those things for you?
So, trust being one of the more difficult
Yes.
things in this lifetime for me. You know, Obviously using my guides is a big thing, and they are very helpful and not helpful in that they certainly ask me to run blind in the dark. I don't need to understand everything.
Mm.
That feels a little challenging to me personally sometimes. Just being really frank, right? Sometimes I cry, I yell, and I get really frustrated.
Yeah.
And it can be for 100 reasons, and I'm sure that my spirit team signed up for my attitude and my reaction or being very dramatic. I certainly think that you've touched on a big one, which is having community, having close friends, having people that you can be vulnerable with and saying,
Mhm.
I'm in a place right now where I'm too attached, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm too upset or whatever, plug in the emotion that I can't help myself right now.
Mhm.
I need someone else's help, right?
Yeah.
And then certainly I think of the rest. I call it rest and resume,
Okay.
right? See it from another perspective, back off, right? Because I can certainly have a lot of masculine energy, right? Check some boxes,
Yep.
goals, get done, and really bringing in that feminine energy of calling it into me and not being in an aggressive, proactive is yeah, is more helpful for me. Yeah, anything else you wanna add to that lost space?
Yeah, I think part of this journey, again, this perfectionism, I thought I was just on a short journey to fix myself, right? And
Oh,
that really, over time, I realized wasn't going to be a quick journey. And that a lot of times when I had those hard stops, it was because of my ego or my inner child, right? They weren't ready for me to move forward. And so, again, learning how to work with both of them, that I just needed, a little bit more time to allow the change to happen.
oh,
It wasn't about forcing anything, right? So, yeah, just learning to pause and take that broader view of what I'm actually trying to accomplish. And then, yeah, just allowing the paths to open. I love a good meditation where someone brings me to the open space, right? And then there's a path I get to go down and, whatever the meditation is. So sometimes those are helpful too. But, there's so many lessons along the way. And if we're just open to receiving them, then, things are definitely easier. But yeah, all the things that you talked about, friends, community, that vulnerability piece is a big one. And having the discernment of to know when it's safe to be vulnerable. I'm not gonna say it's been difficult for me, but I've definitely had some experiences where I thought I was safe being
oh,
vulnerable. And it wasn't that, I wasn't physically safe, it was more emotionally, right?
sure. Which is
And
what which might it's hard. It's hard.
sometimes, yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, you learn lots of lessons along the way and you find your tribe and you build your tribe as you go. We've talked about when you're feeling lost, right? How to navigate those experiences. But when you've felt lost and you've gone through whatever it is, right? You've talked to me or someone else, or you've been in community. What are some of the things that happen right after that kind of stuck period?
So, I'm mulling over in my head, is it always the path of least resistance? And I'm not sure that that's the right answer exactly. But what I do think about is the analogy, initially when someone said, you got to ride the waves, and I felt more like somebody in the ocean getting the hell beat out of me.
Mhm.
That's how I saw it at first.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
you can see why I might struggle with trust and surrender and divine timing.
Yes.
And really where I needed to get to, and it probably took, I'm sure it was divine timing, but it felt like it took a long time for me to get to the place where it was more of an enjoyable ride with the flow.
Yes.
And I think that, coming out of that piece, understanding either I was pushing too hard or, to your point, right? Asking for timing that wasn't divine. You getting to that place where you're, I'll say, well aligned.
Yeah.
That piece feels so much better than the lost piece.
Mhm.
And sometimes I wonder if it's Shelley, right? Ego, child, human, 3D,
Yeah.
that's really pushing the piece that feels that way,
Mm.
because it's more about maybe what I want and then what is for me.
Mhm.
But I think, circling back to the map is, are we listening to our intuition, right? Are we
Mhm.
listening to our body, and whether it's feeling the pain, seeing the bee, catching the sign,
Mhm.
right? Or, being in the present moment, right? That map for me is is happening all around me,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
right?
Yeah, I think I like what you said at the beginning, which is that sometimes the map, shows you the bigger picture, right? And it gives you all of the different routes. I think, we've talked a lot about season 1, the healing journey can just be really varied for a lot of people. And, we've both been on this journey, a similar amount of time, 5 or 6 years. And I'm finally at a spot, and I think you're probably in a similar spot where I feel like I've made it to not necessarily the top, but like close to the top of the mountain. But what I recognized recently through some personal development is that the path up the mountain was way harder for me than it needed to be because I thought that I needed to keep all of the baggage that I was working on as I climbed the mountain. So I wasn't really releasing or letting go of the junk that I thought I was, right? So allowing more of that to fall off as I climb up the mountain has made the mountain a little bit easier.
Oh, yeah, and as you were talking, my intuition went back to the original card with the light coming out of the well, and what was
Yes.
funny is I'd heard not to mention the other part of the picture, which is a mask
Okay.
coming on, and what I love about what you just said and that card coming back to mind with that picture is, we're not trying to fix ourselves, but we are trying to find ourselves.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely.
And to your point about letting all that baggage go, right? Really,
Yeah.
really who you are isn't the baggage, right? It
No.
isn't those things.
Nope.
So I hope you're enjoying the top.
Yes, the top has it's been interesting. It has it's a whole new set of experiences, right? It's a whole new
Mhm.
set of, okay, I have laid down all that junk. It wasn't mine to own. It is gone, and now, right? Whew, that light is bright. I get to shine it real, real
Mhm.
bright, and that's a whole new whole new level of scary in a good way, right? In a good way.
Roller
But
coaster good, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. But yeah, it's just yeah, there's no wrong turn in any of the processes that we go through. If you feel like you've taken a path that's a little bit, more shaded or has a little bit more overgrowth in it than
Rocky?
than you'd like, you get to sit, you get to learn what those things provided, and it either clears a new path or you get to turn around, right, and go back to the center and choose a new route.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah, and I think the key word to what you said is, right, we get to choose,
Yeah.
right? When we go on an excursion, it's our choice.
Yes.
When we take longer time to get there, right, it's our
Yeah.
choice,
Mhm.
or the choices that we're making.
Yeah. Exactly.
When we get there faster, maybe we're listening to the signs, maybe we're ready for it, maybe we're developing the skills in a faster pace than we expected.
Yeah.
But again, right? All about me, no competition,
That's right.
no right or wrong, but really learning to enjoy it and
Yeah.
find the joy in it.
And find the joy in it, absolutely, because there's
Oh,
always nuggets of joy.
oh. Well, that's awesome. I think we covered maps and healing today.
I think we got it.
So certainly bright lights. If you have thoughts on maps in the healing journey or how to trust more on that journey, feel free to, send us a message, leave us a comment. But yeah, we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Healers with Humor.
We hope that you found some laughs, a little light, and maybe even a few aha moments along the way today.
Remember, healing's a journey, not a destination, and you don't have to go it alone.
If today's episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend who could use a little healing and humor in their life.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on YouTube and any social media to stay connected with us.
Because we're definitely going to be sharing more wisdom, more laughs, and probably a little more oversharing next time.
Oh, you know it. Until then, take care of yourself, embrace the journey, and don't forget to laugh a little along the way.
All right, so see you next time on Healers with Humor.